Cliniko family, it's your number one fan, Rachel here. Since it's another day, another week, it's time for Cliniko This Week. I've got some treats for you today involving new data available on our data exports for payments, fixes to the payments page and appointment schedule, and changes for letters, treatment notes, and more. Get ready, get set, let's Cliniko. Let's jump right into the changes we made for our data exports, starting with payments. As a reminder, data exports of payments can only be generated by certain roles. So if you are a bookkeeper or administrator, this is for you. First, when generating a data export of payments, we used to export payments based on the creation date. So if you created a payment in August, but backdated the payment to January, generating an export for payments in August would include that January payment. But if you generated an export for January, that payment wouldn't be included since it wasn't created in January.
What?
Yeah. I know. So we've changed the export to be based on the payments date and not the creation date. So if you backdated a payment for January, exporting payments for January will now contain that payment. We also added a new column in the payments export. You'll now see a column labeled tax amount. This will show the tax that was collected on each payment if applicable. This is especially useful for anyone who uses cash-based accounting and need to file their goods and services tax returns. The last change made to data exports was to the patient data export, which can only be generated by administrators. Previously, if you had duplicate patients and they were merged, we would still show the original or duplicate files in the export. That is no longer the case. You'll simply see one row/instance of the patient in your export. Now, let's move on to the fixes released to the appointments page. There was a weird display issue that was causing the time column to duplicate and get stuck when moving between dates. Additionally, some appointments were overlapping instead of being displayed side by side if the appointment was scheduled for the same time. And when you deleted one of those overlapping appointments, the remaining appointment would only take up half the column. Finally, if the time zone on your computer was different than the time zone listed in your Cliniko user settings, it would cause the red line we show for today's date and time to be off. All of these glitches in the matrix have been resolved. Next up, we updated our appointment schedule report so that it will no longer include attendees of group appointments or classes that were marked as did not arrive. They were being listed previously on the report, but this was a bug that has also been squashed. Our next two changes are related to patients. When emailing a letter to a patient via a mobile device, the pop-up window couldn't be scrolled if certain options were selected. Also, the edit and archive buttons were a little too close for comfort for treatment notes, depending on your screen size. Both of these issues have been addressed by our Knights of the Cliniko table. They fixed the scrolling issue, and the buttons for archive and edit on treatment notes had a breakup and went their separate ways. Next on the fix list, we fixed a bug that allowed receptionists and other security roles that typically don't have permission to archive products to see the archive button in a product's page. If archive was selected by those roles, it wouldn't do anything for those roles, but we removed the archive button option from their view to prevent any further confusion. Speaking of confusion, we've updated the Billable Items page to include details on concession pricing. Specifically, concession prices should be entered without tax included. If tax is indicated on the billable item, it will then be added to the amount during the invoice creation process. Well, that's it for this week's changes. A spoiler alert, I'll be returning for more news, updates, changes, and more in the next Cliniko this week. Enjoy your day, night, or evening. Goodbye!